Okay. So I am looking across here.
Holly, may I mention something before we dive
Yes.
in? So we received, at this moment, we have all the plans in. Melissa, you have a hand up.
That was for my question, and my hand needs to go back down. There we go. Thank
Oh, so that was, we already resolved that. Okay. So just so everybody knows and we're on the same page. So we have 35 plans. We had an interesting development with one county, which has been relying on their school district to be the planned both submitter and executor. And the school district decided that there will be other opportunities for them in the last minute. So now it will be the juvenile department taking over the planning. And since that was a really recent development, they have not been able to submit the plan yet. So there's one pending that we have not been able to review. And that's Lincoln County. So if it's missing, it's because it's not there. That's all I have.
Okay.
All right, I'm happy to start. You said this was office hours, so I'm gonna bring all my dumb questions. I'm a total newbie, and I truly mean dumb questions. But I printed out, marked up the all the materials submitted for Clackamas, Douglas, Klamath, and Polk, and I wanted to go through and make sure that I'm reading things right, making sure that I'm looking at this the right way before I actually enter anything into the spreadsheet. Um,
Yeah.
I don't want to enter in something dumb and have you guys all confused. So, for example, I'm looking at the Clackamas um, uh, plan, and lots of detail. I appreciate all the information. I thought it was a great application, at least comparatively. However, I was confused about the budget. And the budget had a line here where it said that the the director, like I don't, I'm looking on, if any of you guys want to check this out, this is page 27, Appendix E, the budget. And it says fiscal year 25 to 26 amount. And then they break down like how much for each person. And it says 0.02 FTE for $116,000, 699. That's for the program director. So I did some math and I said 0.02 FTE times 50 is equal to 1 FTE. That means this person is making like $5 million or something like insane. That must be a typo, right? Or is that normal? Me being a newbie, I don't know.
So I'm looking at it. It says zero point 0.0 FTE, and so the program director is a total of $2,334.
I'm looking on page 27.
Yeah, the top one where it says personnel.
Yes, personnel, and it says
Program director, and it has 2,334. And then the parentheses,
okay. So
it
that's
has
what
0
got it.
FTE.
Okay. See, dumb questions.
Yeah, no. That's like,
I'm
that is
thinking,
really,
oh my goodness, people make a lot of money. Am I in the right
I was like, what is going
place?
on? Okay. So 0.25 FTE comma, and then that's the whole amount.
yes.
It was a full FTE. Okay, that's why I was like, what is going on? Why is this person making $5 million? But that doesn't make sense. Okay, got it.
We're in the wrong business, Kim, if that's the case.
Definitely.
Okay, that makes total sense. I feel a little bit like an idiot. I apologize, but
No, that's a good question.
there we go. So otherwise, I thought Clackamas was really detailed and easy to follow, easy to understand, easy to track. So I am going to move over to Douglas
Okay.
County's one. And maybe I unfairly focus a lot on the budget, but since we're reviewing it for a grant, I mean, maybe I just lack a lot of skills to assess some of the other things. But okay, Douglas County, I'm looking at page 9, which is their mini paragraph on budget. And it just says the 2025 to 27 biennium budget total is 120,571. And then they kind of allot it out. They say 108,516 is allotted to options counseling, staff, supervisors, administration costs, and then there's an administration costs of 12,000. This is the cost to cover the administrative costs of managing the program. So it's like 3 sentences, and that's it. So compare that with Clackamas, where I get to see how is this money being distributed among people? Do these numbers make sense? I can't see that at all here, and there's really nothing else that breaks it down further. Is that normal, or do you guys normally expect a little bit more of a breakdown?
So I think I've seen most every other one of them broke out in a table,
Okay.
is what I have seen. So I think it would be a totally appropriate email back to Douglas County to
Okay.
have them just do a little bit more budget detail on you. I think that that is appropriate. And I think how we frame that for Douglas County is that it's not a denial, but we would just like to see a little bit more detail and maybe send them the template that everybody else has used for their budget. Would that be an acceptable thing? I happen to know that they are in between juvenile directors. And so I think the conversation with Wendy Lang, who used to be at Curry County, is I think it would be a pretty quick conversation, Anya, for her to put it, because I have seen Curry counties and it's broken down in the table. So would that be an okay thing for us to do, Anya?
Yeah, sure. I can do that. So there are a couple of things. Douglas County has been using the old template, biennium after biennium after biennium. Doesn't seem so. That's why it has the format that you see. Now, as far as budget, so the budget right now is an estimate because we don't have the total amount of money. So basically what they're saying is this, and I will follow up because we need more, but I'm just trying to explain what it is. So sometimes a county will receive the money and keep just the admin bit of it, which is up to 10%.
Yep.
And then so that's like this one out of 120,000, 108,000, that's what they pass over. So basically they subcontract with options counseling. And we usually don't ask for the sub-grantee budget because it's really, it's a sub-grant at this point. That's the, so we make an agreement with the county and we'll say, well, this is how much money has been allotted to you because that's how much money we got from the legislature. And then you got a certain percentage. And then, but we do not determine like the budget of the sub grant. Does that
Right.
make sense? However, we will ask for details here, like, so once the money goes to options counseling, what are they going to be using that for? Are they going to be like using one counselor, two counselors, this kind of thing. So it's totally appropriate for ask for details. And now that Wendy is there, we will request Douglas County to use the up to speed and revised format in the future.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So we will, I'm making notes. I will send, I think Eric is still there. Wendy is his deputy now. So anyway, I'll just send both to both of them.
So Wendy is the new acting. Wendy actually has the title of acting director.
Is she?
He's Eric's retired. Is officially retired.
Okay, so I will send it to Wendy and well, so we'll make a contact with Douglas County asking for clarification on the budget. Make sense?
Okay. And so along those lines, now that I understand why theirs looks so different and so much shorter, it was really hard for me to assess like how the strength of this program or, what they're doing because of the 9 pages submitted. I think 3 or 4 pages was just a list of different member agencies that have inclusion practices and protocols that serve underserved groups. And I'm like, great, that's nice to have this list, but how do they factor into your budget or what do they do to assist you? It felt a little bit like a mini directory of services in the county. And then with respect to, services and programs to be funded, it was just so thin that I was reading this and I was like, there's just not enough meat for me to really assess anything. And so, I focused, my first thing I brought up was the budget, just in the sense that I have no idea what it's being used for. But I just want to be transparent that it was hard for me to assess the cultural appropriateness given the thinness of the application. So there was that. Okay. I wanted to check with you. So as we're going through these, for Douglas, for example, I typed in reviewer comments and I put need additional details for budget breakdown. That's what I put on the smart sheet. In the budget column, do you actually want me to fill out the budget column as well for each of these counties that I reviewed? I'm happy to. Oh, no. Okay. That's where I was like, am I supposed to be filling out that box in the smart sheet or somebody else's? Okay.
So only if you see something striking, like
Yes.
you did in case of Douglas County, that it's just lacking.
Oh, okay. So maybe I would put that.
So if it's lacking something that we need to follow up, then yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm not actually typing in the number because somebody down, I think, in one of the other counties put an actual number there. Oh, wait, I remember. One of you shared that number seemed off, I think, and that's why you put it there. Got it. Okay. Okay. So then at least I know what I'm doing there. Okay. Klamath, I was confused about. And because, again, I don't know anything about anything, so I apologize, but it seems like there were 2 budgets. There was the Klamath Tribes Judiciary, and then the Klamath Youth, like something, Youth Empowerment, Klamath Project Youth Empowerment Program. And there
So I
were
think-
2 budgets. Is that
So
normal?
they asked for subcontractors to provide their budgets to them.
Okay.
Correct, Anya? If I remember
Yeah,
right.
so Klamath County subcontracts the funds to the tribal court and to the program you just mentioned. Let me just find where it is.
So Klamath has them submit their budget to Klamath that are then submitted in part of their plan. Does that make sense, Ken?
Right. So it's basically it's the information that's lacking from Douglas.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so then that makes sense. Except that the 2 budget charts are very, very different. For example, the budget chart on page 16 for KTJ, Klamath Tribes Judiciary, the numbers seem like, wow, they're trying to do a lot with very little money. That's amazing, commendable, etc. The JCP request total was $39,021. Meanwhile, the budget on page 23, 24 for Klamath Project Youth Empowerment, it's a total. It broke down and it gave us the total program costs of $560,000, 549. All the numbers seem to make sense to me, except one, and I'll tell with you about that. But the bottom line says total JCP requests 40,000 only. So I was a little bit confused. What, like, is that normal? What's going on?
Yeah, so they're leveraging a whole bunch of other funds.
Okay. So how do we know what part of, if they're only asking for 40,000 from us, which by the way, I thought was a little odd because I'm like, well, Clackamas was asking for 200 and
No, that they're not asking for that. So it's a little confusing budget that they provided. They provided too much information, basically.
Yes.
They provided more information than we have asked them. So they basically provided the program budget, which is larger than the amount that they will receive in JCP funds.
okay.
But they will be asking from us. They're not asking for money. They're receiving the allocation that we calculate based on the total amount. So they may ask us for $1 million, but they will get the amount that they will get. However, since they are not going to get $1 million, and very unlikely, that's
Are they minimum grant? Is Klamath just above minimum?
no, it's a little more, but it's still not $500,000 that is here. So
I guess what I'm saying is I don't know what I'm looking at here.
So Kim,
Yeah.
so I'll try to explain. What they did was they took a program that they work with and they used that entire budget. Um, we don't really need all of that information. What we'll give them, hypothetically speaking, $80,000. So they'll take that 3921 that you saw, that 39021 that you saw on page 16, and they'll add it to the total JCP request of 40,000 too. That's what we'll give them. They'll take half of that and pay one program, and they'll take the other 40 and include it in this larger program where they gave us all of this information that we will not be paying for. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes. And is that normal that we don't know exactly how our 40 is being spent within the 560,000? If that's normal, that's fine. I just don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Okay.
That's
So,
not abnormal, I guess.
okay. Because, and the main reason why I'm thinking about this is on page 23, there's a line here that says program coordinator, 1 FTE, $66,008. And then on the amount line, it says $132,077. And I was like, that doesn't, like, again, in general, these numbers don't make sense to me. And so I was looking at here and then looking at the total JCP request. And so if we don't really care how they spend the 40, as long as they semi-justify that there are lots of expenses, and I believe them, there are a lot of expenses. If we don't care how our 40 is split up, then sure, 40 is a great deal for what they're doing. I just don't, I don't know how critical I need to be.
So Kim, with the exception of really large counties, we do not allocate enough funds, period, to fund a single position. We really don't. So like Molly, may I use you as an example? So Molly's county receives $70,000 for 2 years. So that's 35,000 roughly a year. With $35,000, you cannot hire anybody. What you could do is you can subcontract small amounts to kind of do specific activities by an existing program. So,
Yes.
and Molly, you can talk about your own county. So what Klamath is doing, they are giving 2 chunks of money, and we don't know how much money they will have. One will go to tribal Klamath court. So we also have Klamath court will receive JCP funds through a tribal allocation as well. So that's how much money they're giving for specific things, because they probably serve youth that come from Klamath tribal court into the county juvenile services. So that's what that money is for. And it could be $3,000, it could be $30,000. That's outside of our control. It depends on how much, they can give them. And the same with the whatever the program they have, youth services. So it's basically they're subcontracting. The budget they presented here is the budget for those whole entire programs, which only portion is from us.
Okay.
So it's just like when Douglas didn't do enough, Klamath did too much.
Okay. Well, I'm learning. So
And I
No,
have to
that's
tell you,
totally legitimate question. It's just, you see, it's very hard to,
and we
because
gave you Clackamas to begin with, right? And Clackamas is kind of like the gold standard of all of them. So we gave you the, because Christina's been doing it for a really long time and they have professional grant writers.
yeah, that's another thing. Thank you, Molly, for bringing it up. Some plans are beautifully written, not because the counties are doing beautiful job, which may they are, but they have capacity to write a beautiful plan. Some will have just one person. Like the juvenile director will be the person writing the writing the application, serving the kids, and in some cases also having another part-time job within that job. So, and what we're saying from the beginning, both to the applicants and to us, the reviewers, this is not a competitive grant process. Just provide as much information as the question asks you. But some like to write, some prefer to write a very long story, which is awesome. And some are just very to the point.
okay.
Does it make
Well,
sense?
yeah. I think it makes sense. It's just this is the first time I've been
No,
part of a group,
totally.
so
And
I'm just like,
you're noticing all those things that we're kind of like, we know they're there.
Well, and what I love about it is that I think it's a refreshing thing when we get done with all of this is a refreshing piece back to our counties and just and I have the opportunity to do that at OJDDA meetings with Anya, is just say this is what we observed, and it's just a really wonderful opportunity for us to be able to take that information back. So I love it.
okay. All right. Well, then I just have one last county to double check with you guys on. Yeah, thank you for your patience. So the last one I have is Polk. I thought the application was really detailed, great, like up there. I feel like detailed and informative, like similar to Clackamas. The budget, though, I was like a little shocked because it seemed like they weren't asking for very much. It's page 21 of their packet. Number one, it seemed like they weren't asking for very much unless I'm looking at it all weird. And two is I noticed they don't have grant administration costs, but the other counties do. And it made me kind of go, well, why do other counties get grant administration costs and these people don't when they are already asking for comparatively very little? It's also like confusing to me because, now that I'm hearing you say, look, we fund so little that we're really not asking them to prove up every dime, which I understand. But like looking at this, I'm like, okay, it looks like you have a salary of 68,000 and then fringe benefits of 51. Well, I assume that is up to the county slash the people, HR basically to decide what the fringe benefits look like and what the salary looks like. I mean, that looks to me on the outside kind of funny because I'm like, usually the salary is a little more than the fringe benefits, but not for me to decide. So do we, when I'm looking at these budgets, am I just looking at, okay, is the total final amount reasonable, or do I care at all again about breakdown or anything like that?
So we allocate the dollars, so they don't get to choose what their money amount is. So we're telling the counties, so they're getting what we're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
So they aren't going to ask for any more than what we're giving them.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And
So
some counties, some counties do not have to. So some county policies do not require their counties or their grants to request grant administration. So for example, my county does not require that I ask for an administrative cost. Some counties mandate that their departments do that. And they have a formula for which they charge their departments grant administration. So my guess is Polk County, in looking at theirs, they don't have to do that. and so they don't.
Good to know.
So some counties who have federal grants, who have a lot of federal grants, typically have an allocation for administration funds, in indirect costs. So,
Okay.
does that make sense?
All right. Yes. I kind of wish I knew a lot of this before going in, because
Oh,
then
good
I would have
job.
not wasted so much of our time and maybe been
No,
looking
Not
at
a
different
waste.
things.
No,
no,
you didn't waste any time. And I'm thinking like I'm thinking as Molly was saying, one thing is to give feedback to counties, but also this is an excellent feedback to us. Maybe
yeah,
the way we're asking questions and the way we're asking for like this budget thing is confusing to counties also to respond to us. You see? So
yeah.
that's what I'm thinking about is how to revise the guidelines in the future so they're easier to follow.
I'm liking that idea well too, because I think that's truly,
Because you know, if
yeah.
we're confusing you, we're probably confusing them too. Nellie is laughing. I'm sure she's agreeing with what she's
I'm
hearing.
very confused about the budget piece, but I'm just hoping that all the counties I reviewed did it correctly. Yeah.
And another thing with budget is this. This is like a placeholder because once we know the amount, we tell them the amount, then they will resubmit their budgets anyway.
Yep.
That's so much work for them.
I know, but you see, we don't know the number until we know the number. And we will know the number once the legislative process is complete and the governor signs the education budget bill.
Wow. Okay, so my heart hurts for the people who wrote
I
these things,
know.
because I am thinking, if you're telling me, Kim, don't look too carefully, yeah, it's easy for me not to look too carefully, but it's not easy for somebody to not write carefully, to put down random numbers. And so I'm just thinking, if we really didn't need to delve in, then I wish we didn't ask them for.
No, we're close. It's not significantly different, Kim. And we have to do our budgets for our counties anyway. So we are already doing this. So truly, from our perspective, this is probably one of the most thoughtful grants that we do. So it has not been a waste of time by any means.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, good point. And we all had to put a placeholder in our budgets as well, just like Anya and the state had to, and it will not fluctuate dramatically.
Yeah, see, we don't have our budget as an agency either. It's not just grant and aid, the money that we pass. We don't know how much money we will end up having for our administration, you know. We're hoping for the best.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to hog any more time. Those were my observations from reviewing my county plans, and I hope I did an okay job.
You did an awesome job, and thank you for asking all these questions. Again, if you're asking us questions, it's on us to make this process easier and more, you know, understandable on both sides for the
Right.
applicants and for the reviewers.
Will
So-
you? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to jump in. This is Melissa. We're halfway through the half-hour office hours that we had. I was just wondering if, Anya, can you recap for those folks who might have joined a little bit later because it is sort of open office hours, what we're doing? And I will reshare the link in the chat. And a reminder that this is being recorded. I will share the private recording out with the group who was invited to this meeting. Well, either Joy or I will. It's not going to be posted for public viewing. It'll just be for the folks who are doing this reviewing. Thanks.
For those of you who joined us a little bit later, we're just going through our observations, reviewers' observations and questions that may have arisen during the review process. Is that right? That's what we're doing. And it's a work session, so we did not publicly noted it, because if we're confused, imagine how confusing it will be to people who will be just joining in without any background information.
Thank you. I was very confused. So
See?
thank you for the clarity.
I'm sorry about that. See, the intent was not to confuse.
Who wants to go next? Zan, Nella, Annette, any other questions that you want to bring to us?
So I'm just wondering, back to the budget confusion, is someone else other than me going to look at the budget for each of these? Okay, good. Because that's where I'm kind of, I just want to make sure I'm not missing
So
anything
the
big.
budget will be carefully looked at
Perfect.
once the money is decided upon on all those different levels, and then when we enter into the agreements, when basically the grant agreement will have the revised and budget at the level that is
Yep.
reasonable. Like for
Okay.
Douglas County, they will have specifically like what the amount their subcontracting will be paid. In the case of Klamath County, it will be specifically how much money are you using out of this grant, not the cost of your total program.
Okay. I just think all of the counties I reviewed had those tables, which are helpful, but some felt clearer than others, and I didn't know about like adding up all the numbers to make sure they added up to the total and all of that. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. I
It's
will
not funny
say,
how budget seems to be like the most important thing.
yeah, it seems like it should be. Yeah, it's just confusing. I will say I think I should get bonus points because, unbeknownst to me, I ended up seeing one of the programs that I reviewed this week. I was down in Jackson County for the judges conference and heard all about the Pathfinders program. So that was really cool to see what I had reviewed kind of in person. But I thought that Jackson County's was really great, Marion's as well, super thorough. And then Curry County's, I was just concerned. I like was hoping that maybe a more experienced reviewer could look at that briefly, because I think that would be an example of one of the counties that isn't providing a ton of thorough information, and I couldn't tell if that's because they kind of supplemented it with a bunch of attachments and if that's sufficient. But their plan is basically we have these programs and then we're gonna fund, I think, this person. And it's not really about what the program is. It's just pretty brief and then a lot of attachments. So I was just wondering, maybe Molly, if you could just put eyes on that and let me know if I don't know.
So no, I'm looking at it right now. So it's really good. So we have some questions. So the first thing is I'm always looking at what the target population is. So I'm going to take a quick look at that.
Okay.
And so they're gonna focus in on substance use. So they're gonna pull it in a little tighter than just all of the areas. So that's good. And they've got the 10 to 17. And they're gonna do any youth other than formal probation, so that is good. And then they're gonna do it in-house, so it's gonna be an in-house program. And then I'm looking to see the prevention and probation staff do the JCP. Where are we putting it in? So we're going to put all of the JCP. So they're going to do into JJUS. Okay. And then I'll look at some of the appendixes. So they're doing the highlights. They're choosing to respond through appendixes. They're choosing to do it through appendixes. But yeah, they've covered what we've asked them to cover.
Okay.
And then Lawrence, I don't look at the cultural piece of it because I don't have the expertise in LINS, and I haven't worked with Curry County, and Lawrence has worked with all of our counties to know what they're working on. So I just rely on Lawrence's read.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, maybe because it looked so different from the others, I was like, what's going on here? Like it could be fine. But that was really helpful, Molly. You kind of out
Yeah.
loud showing what you're looking for. Yeah. And I think in future years, kind of that, like, I know we did a lot of review in the last two sessions too on how to do this, but watching you review one
Okay.
sort of out loud like that was really helpful. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah. And so when we think about it, so I think about Jackson County and they're not a minimum grant county. And not that minimum grant county shouldn't be held accountable. I totally think that minimum grant county should be held accountable. I just think we think about $35,000 a year versus $100,000 a year and what that can purchase in a county. And so I always kind of think about that.
So that's why Jackson would be much more thorough.
Yes, because they can purchase more.
Okay.
Right, and also with Curry County, to add to what Molly was saying, so the appendices are very important, some of them. So for instance, in one sentence, Curry County said that their probation officer will be using I closed the plan, so I'm trying to, from memory, point something FTE to implement evidence-based curricular, which, Molly, if you can still see the plan, just read them, but then they describe each one of those programs in the evidence-based program appendices. So the actual description of the program is in the appendices. So that's another thing, feedback for us. I mean, we're relying on those JCP, the evidence-based assessments checklist for our selfish reason. And that selfish reason is because we have to submit a report on the implementation of evidence-based practices every other year to the judiciary of the legislature. So that kind of well, I shouldn't say kill, that's the wrong word to use. It serves two purposes. That's how we know that we're implementing certain percentages of evidence-based practices, and it helps people understand. So that's where you can look at the description of the program too.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's really interesting all the variation on how folks
36 counties, each one will have its own,
always. Even if you provide a template.
even like the smallest, well, we'll call them minimum grants, right? They will still have very different ways of. And another thing to keep in mind, some of the applications were written by people for the first time ever. Some are seasoned JCP sort of recipients. Others just got on the role of a juvenile director, now responsible for writing.
Great. Okay. Any other questions, Nella?
I think that was the one I was most concerned about. Like, how do I review this? I don't know, because it looks so differently. So I appreciate you going through it, Molly. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Annette or Zan, any questions?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. Hey, Zan, Jeff got confirmed. He's now a member of the YDC with us.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
For those who don't know Jeff is a county commissioner.
Yes. Sorry, county commissioner recommended by Zan to replace her as the elected county commissioner, and he happens to be from Wasco County. So it was such a compliment from for Zan to suggest that.
And Zen is staying on, right? Zen, you're not disappearing.
Only through the end of the year.
You're just putting on a different hat.
Only through the end of the year. And then I've turned out. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have as much fun as we can.
That's right.
All right, silence to me means that we've answered questions and you guys are going back to pondering. So is that okay? All right, thank you guys.
Is real
Oh,
quick,
no.
is there anything else you need us to do besides for the fact that we confirmed, yeah, we did look at our county plans? Do you need us to type in anywhere or do anything?
Yeah, so type in the smart sheet. Let me
What
get
would
back to
you?
my, yep, hang on one second. Let me get it pulled up. If you just go over to
Recommendation.
the recommendations, and you can put in there um, reviewed, so we know you had eyes on it. And you can either put questions answered during office hours, or you can put your comments in there, whichever you want. Just that's the place we need to have the documentation.
Okay. So like review and recommend for approval, and then for I think it was Douglas, we say review during office hours, and Anya will follow up.
Yep,
Right?
exactly.
Okay. Perfect. I will do that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
I have a couple questions. Sorry,
Oh,
can you remind everyone of the deadline? And if they run into any questions before the deadline, what should their plan of action be?
I'm gonna leave that to Anya.
So, so our, well, here's the things, and I just put into the follow-up recommendation by Juvenile Justice Committee, request a more detailed budget from Douglas County. So it's all in the smart sheet and will stay there, and I will do it now. So the idea is that unless there's something that needs to be resolved between now and the June meeting of the Youth Development Council, because that's when the plans will be approved. And we don't do them by one, but that's kind of like a
We do massive one.
massive. Like at this point, it will be 35 because it's unlikely that Lincoln County will get theirs in. But if they do, then we'll still have some time to review. Maybe if so that's where the approval needs to happen. So if there are still any outstanding questions, concerns, just keep updating the smart sheets. And if I see something like review recommendation that looks other than approve or move for approval, whatever. Unless I see something that requires a follow-up, we will assume that it went through the review process and is recommended for approval. Right? Does it make sense?
Mhm.
So between now, because I don't think we really have a time for a meeting because the YDC meeting is next week.
Mm-hmm.
So if
please
there,
come in by Friday, if at all possible.
yeah.
So that gives us a day or two if we need to. But so Friday would be the ask.
Oh, thank you, Molly. I know it's not a lot of time, but you've done
You guys have got it
99% of the work. It's just like looking back at your own, observations, and if there's something not really stuck out, let us know.
Okay.
And really, really thank you for all your work. I mean, I know it's just like, Lawrence, you didn't have it before we move on. So Lawrence, you've reviewed all the plans and I'm seeing your notes. So there's none required a follow-up.
No, I've reached out to those who need follow up, and we've rectified any situation that they've
So it's resolved.
kind of posted. Everything is resolved. I was just waiting on Jefferson County. They submitted theirs. I looked at their stuff, and they're doing well also. The only one that hasn't is Lincoln County, like you said.
Yeah,
All 30,
it's
your
just,
other
it was
35 have
one
been
of
done.
those interesting moments when the school district on its own decided that there are greener pastures elsewhere. Okay, well, thank you so very much. And
Take care.
bye now. Thanks, Kim.
Bye all.
Bye.